Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. This is Google Plus Week, our unofficial look at the world's coolest social network. Our first topic tonight, the teen invasion. Google has announced that age 13, depending on what country you are in, either age 13 or 14 is now the minimum age for entry into Google Plus, and it's stirred up quite a bit of controversy. Joining us first up on this topic is Oleg from Kirkland, Washington. Oleg, what do you think about this? Is this a good thing?
I think it's a great thing, mainly because, vast population of people on the internet are people of that age. I mean, it's a known statistic. And so I think it's great that Google is adding these folks to the overall network, but they're trying to do so, and I talked to Louise Gray yesterday a little bit about this part. They're trying to do so in a way where it's going to be congruent with, some people won't agree to what they're doing, but for the most part, trying to make it so it's safe for these kids to be on a network in terms of who they talk to, what kind of content they can see and stuff. So I don't know how successful Google will be necessarily in doing the parenting, so to speak, but they're going to try to do something right from the get-go to make sure that, for example, when you're in a hangout with your friends, about the same age group, you can't have an adult who is much older all of a sudden decide to join this hangout without having this adult be in one of the kids' networks, for example, one of their circles. And this is just one example, but they're going to do a number of things that will make sure. I don't know how successful they will be from the standpoint, because I think it indicated that what's going to happen is if an adult tries to join, it's going to remove the junior people from the hangout, and then it'll let them give them ability to rejoin, is the way I read it. And that to me is weird, because if we have a bunch of kids hanging out and then some adult comes in, it means it's going to kill all the sessions for all the kids and just leave the adult in there in an empty hangout, and then somehow kids can start it again. So it seems a little strange to me, but we'll see how it actually plans out. But the good thing, I think, is that the fact that they are letting this age group get on Google Plus and use the Google Plus benefits, and I think it's going to be phenomenal for getting more people involved and being able to have kids not only talk to their own age group, but also be able to participate with the parents and grandparents and teachers, and so I think it's great.
I think it's neat, and we always pick on Justin Bieber here, but he has 16 million followers, almost 17 million on Twitter. Right now, the last official number for Google was 90 million. Can you? One kid, 17 years old, Canadian kid,
Right,
can come over here and potentially bring 10 to 20 million people with them. It's a whole new game. There are some concerns about this, though. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Well, the concerns for me are that the adults that have been on the network since it started should have the ability to set permissions on the interactivity of their posts. I think that's a fair right down the middle compromise, allowing adults to prevent people under 18 interacting with their content.
Yeah, I think a rating thing where you could mark. How would that work? You could, when you're doing a post, let's say you had a risque post, you could just mark it. It's PG or
the
R.
post will have to be categorized.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not quite as simple as that, Dan, actually, because anytime you post publicly on Google+, you're not just posting inside the network. You are posting on a database which is visible to the entire internet. So you have to remember, anytime you share anything on Google+, it is available if you share it publicly to the internet at large. You don't need to be logged in. So in a content rating system, and you're still sharing things publicly, even if they're not logged into their account, they're going to be able to find that content. If you truly want to block your content from being seen by people under 18, the only way to do that is to share it to circles where you're certain those people are under that age. What my idea allows you to do is control the interactivity of your posts. That means these people can see your content anyway, but you can control who can or cannot share, comment, +1, or join a hangout based on what content you're posting.
Of course, the workaround is to just say that only people in your circles can comment, but that's kind of a hassle and that's limiting, especially if you're once you get above 5,000 people in your circles, you can't reciprocate for everybody. That's a problem with the system. Harold, you have some thoughts, and then we're going to throw it to Alan.
Yeah, when we talked to Catherine Graham yesterday, she was talking about the Hangouts, and
Explain
the way
who
it
she
works,
is.
she said, is that
Explain who
if
Catherine
a man
is.
comes in and there's... Pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry. Explain who Catherine is.
Oh, Catherine Graham from Google. She's the community manager for Google Hangouts, and she said if a man comes into a room that there's young people in there, or anybody that's over 18 years old, the first thing that happens is the microphone gets blocked, and then the video gets blocked of the young people. So anybody who's an under 18, their microphone and video will be blocked.
So really, the realistic thing, Alan, is that the kids are going to be on the system, but none of them are going to admit to how old they are, right?
No, I think they're going to see a number of kids who are legitimately going to be presenting their age. I think at least part of that is because the parents are going to be encouraging them to present their age. And to be honest, there isn't really a significant reason for them not to. For the most part, these are kids who are quite happy to say how old they are. The restrictions that are in place are more default restrictions rather than absolute restrictions. And I think it's a very good compromise. Google has certainly tried to find the nuances, as they always seem to be doing with this system, into figuring out exactly what's good, where the problems could be, and what they need to pay attention to. I think one of the big things here is this is where Google is coming out and saying, we're not going to be judging people based on a number of criteria. Instead, we're going to be looking at how people behave, and I think we're going to hear that a lot as in all of our conversations tonight.
You think there's a big difference between 13 and 17, but they're not going to draw a distinction?
There's a big difference between 20 and 40 and 60, and they don't draw a distinction.
Well, they're all legal adults, though. But the kind of post you might share with a 17-year-old might be very different from what you'd feel comfortable sharing with a 13-year-old. Or just
I'll be honest, Dan, I'll be honest. The kind of post that I would share with an 18-year-old and the kind of post that I would share with a 20-year-old and the kind of post that I share with a 40-year-old are all entirely different, but they have nothing to do with their age.
Mm-hmm.
So what about what Dan said about 13-year-old?
Yeah. I will be honest. I do not judge a person by their age. I judge a person by their behavior. I judge a person by their maturity. And there is only a very, very rough correlation between their age and their maturity. There are a lot of people who are legal adults on this system right now that I quite honestly wouldn't share things with. And that's because they're not what I would consider mature.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think they have to kind of divorce Hangouts and posts. So we have different rules for Hangouts versus the posting aspect. But possibly the way they can handle the a Hangout situation is make it limited, not public, where you have to have an invite to get into the Hangout to begin with. So, because I would hate to see that you wouldn't be able to hang out with your your uncle that lives in another state because he's older, So there's going to be limitations to just age of people hanging out.
One of the criteria currently is if a person who's joining is already in your circles, the audio and video don't get blacked out. So if, for example, you're having a family hangout and Uncle Joe joins your hangout, you're not suddenly going to go black.
You're not going to go black then, okay.
Right. They've paid attention to things like that. This is
specifically... But if you've got the siblings meeting, and then Uncle Joe comes in, they will get blacked out.
Not if all of the siblings have Uncle Joe in their circles already.
So if they're a known quantity, then basically it's unrestricted.
Correct. In fact, it's if as I read it, it's if anybody who is not in your circles joins the hangout, you'll get the warning saying, where you is a teenager, will get the warning saying, hey, this person isn't in your circles. Do you want them to see you?
And economically, it makes sense for Google to want these people in the network because they have the most disposable income around. So they'll be buying things and products as well. So.
And they use this stuff like crazy. But Alan, the obvious fear here is there's this naked man we've seen that just appears in Hangouts and dances in full regalia, and I can see someone capturing this and these tech writers who are just praying for any kind of Google stumble to exploit.
No, it's absolutely right. It's all about the enforcement. Is definitely very iffy on this thing. Very iffy in terms of the rules and the enforcement.
I think the naked man is already violating Google's terms of service. And as Google has said, and as I said, this is going to be a recurring theme tonight. It's going to be that Google Plus now has to step up their enforcement based on actions, and not try to do enforcement based on other arbitrary things which don't directly correlate to actions.
The big question, though, Alan, is whether it's enforceable or not. That's the big question.
But yeah, it's going to have to be enforceable because
Google has said that they're going to be enforcing it.
Well,
and
they said the same thing about pseudonyms.
Well, we want to get into that? We'll get into that in a minute, I'm sure.
But
They did a pretty good job with pseudonyms.
They need to do something to kind of enforce it, to kind of limit their liability. They can't just have the Wild West in the
Right.
Hangouts or in the posting. So just to limit their liability, they have to do something to enforce it, show that they're prudent about it.
But there are two issues, Jeff.
And they've said how they're going to. They've said that if you see problems, you need to report it, and that they will act on those reports.
Yeah. There are basically two issues. Number one is the enforcement itself. Number two, how well will the whole thing work with these enforcements in place? That's the second issue. If it's going to be a useful and usable environment, or if it's going to be a joke based on how it's being enforced and how it's being done and all the flagging and changing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, one thing Google is very good at, they are very nimble in changing, So if they find that there's a problem, they'll address it quickly. They're not like other social networks.
I agree.
I don't know exactly how nimble they are, but okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that for now.
No. They've put in a tremendous. If you look at the changes that Google has done to Google Plus in the last few months, it's astonishing.
Yeah, but that's
There's
not
no other company.
I'm sorry. I mean, that's reacting. I wouldn't call that nimble.
Well, no, but I'm just talking about
that's a perfectly reasonable reaction and perfectly reasonable work to make those changes, but I wouldn't call that nimble. Nimble would be reacting to something within 5 hours.
Well, I mean, you have to remember the size of the company, number one. You have to remember the complexity of the product, number two.
Oleg, I certainly understand it, and I understand the monumental task that it is in that kind of enforcement. But if somebody identifies a problem along the lines of the naked man joining Hangouts, they're not going to be able to put a fix in place within an hour, which is what some people are entirely unreasonably going to expect.
But they did when that gentleman that I forgot his name that raised his finger in his profile.
Right.
They had that out in a day.
But that was a high-profile case.
Yeah, but they did it though. They were able to.
I don't know about that.
They were able to go in and make a change quickly.
I haven't seen much porn or things along those lines on Google Plus.
Well, it's not so much porn,
have you guys seen
have...
it? I mean, once in a while you'll see it, but they disappear.
Apparently
They've done
you're
a
in the
pretty
wrong
good job.
circles then, Dan, because I've gotten a lot of people telling me that they've seen it and they've been exposed to some rather unpleasant stuff.
Yeah, but being told that other people have seen, being told that other people have seen it and actually seeing it and it actually existing are two completely different things. Being told from, a third and fourth and maybe even fifth party that it exists is bogus.
What do you think, Anthony? You're kind of a young guy. What do you think about the 13 and ups?
Just to quickly, finish with Alan. I mean, Alan, you're probably a power Google Plus user, and if you haven't seen it, then
I've seen it.
Okay. All right. As far as 13 and up, I don't think that platforms should limit the age group of the people that can use it beyond the scope of what the local governments limit. And in the United States, and I forget what they call it, but in the United States, they say that you have to be at least 13 years of age to use any online community.
That's not quite what COPPA says. I mean, that's what a lot of people says, and that's basically the path of least resistance. But that's not what COPPA says.
That's to share information based on what COPPA says.
Right,
that's my understanding.
Online communities, right? I mean, share information online communities.
No,
right? I mean,
it's possible to have online communities for children under that age. But
right, and you have to sign up parent
how they
consent.
use it and what controls need to be in place. And nobody's put those controls in place yet. Well, sorry, none of the big names have put those controls in place yet. There are social communities for for kids. They're out there. They exist. They work entirely legally. And
my point is that as long as the local, powers that be, governments or what have you, say that these large companies that very much have to keep themselves in line with what the government regulations are, whether you agree with those regulations or not, they definitely exist, and you don't want to be faced with thousands of dollars of fines every time you violate those regulations. I think that I don't like the idea of companies policing their I guess once you get past a certain age, like, you don't want a 2-year-old, going around and messing around and whatever.
No, but there are a lot of reasons why people do.
Position...
I'm sorry. Go finish up your point, and I'll respond to that one.
All right, thank you. Generally speaking, I think that it very much is the job of I'm sorry, I just got a notice and sidetracked. I very much think that it's the job of the parents to police their children, and not governments and organizations and companies. So I mean, at a certain point, you need to make a cutoff. I don't think it's 13 years of age necessarily. I don't want to. At the same time, I don't want to be running into a bunch of 10-year-olds on.
Oops, we just lost him. I think some 10-year-old killed him.
How do they verify it?
Well, that'll be part of the problem.
Yeah, how do they verify if they're
12
12 or 13? Well, go ahead and answer it.
To address one of the things he said, though, his comment was you don't want a 2-year-old on there. There are parents who do want their 2-year-olds on there. There are parents
not so
who want
much
their
2-year-old,
1-year-old
but yeah, I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. I'd love to have something where they can communicate with their peers.
Right.
It'd be wonderful.
Okay. When my son was born, very shortly afterwards, he got a Facebook account. And why did he get a Facebook account? That was so that we could post photos of him and tag them, so that his relatives could easily find him.
Sure. Exactly.
Okay, there are perfectly logical and legitimate reasons to have very, very young kids on social networks in very, very limited ways. And COPA allows those social networks to set up those limited ways. The problem is some of the restrictions are very difficult. It would be very difficult, for example, for Twitter or Facebook to implement those restrictions. I think it would be a lot easier for Google Plus to implement those restrictions, partly because they've got some of the tools already in place.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
actually very disappointed that Google Plus didn't take that step yet, and I'm hoping it's a yet, to let that happen. I think if they did that, they would go far and above what any other big social network is doing.
Yeah, plus they would get the schools involved, I think, if they did that.
Well, some schools actually disallow social networks.
But some schools very much allow it and very much encourage it.
There are actually commercial services, Alan. I've seen in, in one of my competitor papers, the name escapes me, I saw an article that they went into a classroom and they were students. It's really good with foreign language students where they're communicating with the class in France, and then the French kids are learning English and they're learning French, and they can spend half and half time back and forth. And they're controlled social networks, and the schools pay for them. But Google could figure out how to do this right and do it for free. This would be great for schools.
Well, I think
because then they can also move into the next phase, which is sell them Chromebooks, which would be a perfect add-on to go into the deal.
I wonder if that thought's come to Google's mind.
Well, I'm sure it has, because I know there's some schools that have, like my kids in school, they have netbooks. They have a bunch of netbooks, which I'm sure cost no less than Chromebooks did. But I've seen an article somewhere in a newspaper, not competitive newspaper to Dando, where it talked about Chromebooks.
I saw that.
School.
Yeah.
Yes, Google very recently has been pushing Chromebooks in education. There have been posts on Google Plus recently about that. There's a Chrome in Education page on Google Plus. It's a big issue in Google right now.
Yeah, because they're trying to go after Apple's iBooks, which they can kill it without even thinking about it if they do it right. It's not that difficult.
They're trying to get in there before the iPad makes too big a dent
Exactly.
into that into the education market.
I think iBooks is totally different. It's a totally different platform.
It is totally different, but it's basically they're trying to win over hearts and minds, and they know that nobody is going to get both of them. Nobody's going to get both a Chromebook and an iPad.
Right.
Apple's always been strong in education.
In education.
In the old
Yeah,
days.
but they've also been
Especially
strong
in the
in
West Coast.
restrictions too. They restrict their products.
Yeah.
No, that's what's gonna.
Yeah, they restrict them to the people that can afford them. I'll tell you that.
Exactly.
Okay, a quick trivia question, Anthony. I want to know what the beer can behind you. What brand is it up top there? What is
It's not a
that
beer
thing?
can. It's not a beer can.
I see a bottle and a
It's,
can
You mean
up top to your right.
like this?
No,
No,
turn
no.
around.
on top of the file cabinet.
Turn around.
Oh, I guess that is a beer bottle.
What brand is it? What brand is the can?
Corona?
It's Labatt's. It's Labatt's Light Lime. It's the only beer I would drink, literally.
What's the can next to it? That looks like Schaefer's or some god awful college
no.
beer.
This is root beer, mug root beer.
Oh, okay.
Nice
I
combo.
thought it was an important issue since I was staring at it the whole time. I was like, God, please tell me we're gonna have to give him a raise for his appearance fee if he's drinking Schaefer's or something. Now I'm gonna upset all of our listeners from whatever town that's in. Okay. All right. Let's move on to this god awful pseudonym topic.
Yeah. Let's
For
keep
this
it short,
segment-
though, on that one.
Let's
for
keep
this
it short.
segment, I am Dan X. Alan is Alan Prisoner Furstenberg from New York, and Oleg, don't
Is
call me
Oleg.
Russian guy, Muskovashkovashkovich with fries.
Just
I'm just
Oleg.
kidding. I'm just kidding. Just Oleg. All right, Alan. Do you have any thoughts on would you like to explain the pseudonym policy? I think you've touched on it
have any-
before, and I
have
think
any
you have
thoughts?
some thoughts on this. And Oleg and I will take 5 while you rant.
Okay.
I think the big issue here is that at least officially, pseudonyms are allowed again. Nicknames are allowed. There's a whole lot of things that we can now do with our names. But the long and short, and there's a lot of details left to be worked out, but the long and short of it is that Google is no longer chasing people down with attempts to kill them if they're using pseudonyms.
You actually had a fake or you had to set up a second profile, right?
I had,
Describe
I
your
had to set up a
personal
second
history.
profile while my initial name was being appealed, and it's an appeal that I lost, but I have now been able to reclaim that name, so I'm very happy about that.
You should have had a better attorney.
You sure it wasn't appalled instead of appealed?
They certainly found it appalling.
Conan is safe in his job.
No, I think the most interesting thing about this whole reversal and decision was just how much Google admitted they made a big mistake with what they did with the names. They made a big mistake with what their intentions were with the names. And they are trying to put things in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, there are some mistakes they've made in trying to put it in place. It's not exactly worked well yet. But the Google Plus lead engineer claims that he is personally supervising this operation, and he would like to get it resolved so he can go back to writing code.
It's basically just in your profile under edit, you can just add another name.
No, it's much more complicated than that.
But isn't that where it's at? It's under
there are
edit your profile.
there are two aspects to this. The first is that for people like myself who are willing to keep we'll call it for the moment a legal name, as well as a nickname, and want to make sure that that nickname gets displayed very prominently, there is now a field where you can add that nickname and have that nickname displayed in some cases. There are some other cases where that nickname is not displayed, and they've indicated that they will be adding those eventually. They're working on that still. So, for example, if you hover over my name now, you will see that I am Alan Prisoner Furstenberg. But when I post, you won't see that the message comes from Alan Prisoner Furstenberg. It just comes from Alan Furstenberg still. That's a change they still need to make. The other much, much more significant part of this is that people who were, in the past, were creating accounts under names that didn't look like what most people would consider a real name, and I'm going to use real name in that sense, were being rejected. So, for example, if I had applied for an account under the name Prisoner, it would have been rejected in the past. And now there is a much more clear avenue for my use of that name. For people like Cy, who has a legal name of Cy, that's his entire name, in the past, he would have had to go by the name of Cy Dot, and would have spent quite a bit of time trying to prove the fact that that's his name.
I like that better, though. Cy Dot sounds so much better than Cy.
Well, he didn't think so because Cy Dot isn't his name.
I'm teasing you.
For people who go by a semi-professional name, let's call it, who are commonly known by the name, commonly known by a name. For example, Scud, who was a Google employee when Google Plus went live, and was not allowed to use her name on the system that she helped create. Those are now there's now an avenue for getting those legally approved. Most importantly, Google has now essentially come out and said, we really don't care what your name is. The revelation they had was that originally their intention, their thought was that people who were using their real name were going to act better on the system. And after several months, they discovered, well, that's not quite true. In fact, their engineer said, bastards will be bastards no matter what name they use.
But it looks like you can just set that pseudonym or nickname or whatever you want to call it by your circles if you wanted it to as well. So they would see you under that nickname for your friend circles, but possibly not under the public posts or whatever.
Currently, nobody will see it under the public posts. That feature hasn't been fully implemented yet.
Any guys want to weigh in on this, feel free.
Next topic. No, it's basically it's a non-issue. I mean, some people wanted pseudonyms. They got their pseudonyms. I don't know why there's anything else even to be discussed about this. Alan is happy. Everybody else should be happy. Done.
Well, here's the thing, though. No, Oleg, it's not that simple. And part of the reason why it's not that simple is...
You should have never said it, Oleg.
And part of the reason why it's not that simple is twofold. There are a lot of reasons why people would want to use a pseudonym. And they've covered most of the cases. And they've tried to come out and say, really, we're not going to go after names. The problem is it's still not working. People like Techno Granny, who have applied for a pseudonym, have been rejected again, even though she was able to legitimately prove that she has a many, many, many year history of using that as her name.
So, Alan, let me ask you this, and this would be my example. Online, when I use a nickname, I usually use the nickname PhaseDMA. I have an account on Twitter, and I have it on various other, actually not so much on phones anymore. But if I tried to prove that I use the name PhaseDMA on Twitter and that I have a domain name with that name, would I be able to prove that I use that name sufficiently for Google Plus?
One of the things they said would be an indicator is if you had a domain name with that name. So in your case, yes, you likely would.
Now, if we just to make it more simple for more extreme cases, I guess, or less extreme, or however you want to look at it, if we take out the domain name and we just if I just have a Twitter account, would I be able to prove that I use that name?
The answer is it starts getting fuzzy at that point. That's where a human needs. That's where they've said that a human is going to step in and start reviewing the cases. And as much as they're going to give as much leeway as they can, the biggest reason that they're trying to, the biggest thing they're going to try to prevent doing is making sure that brand names aren't going to be using names. They're also kind of trying to make sure that what they were referring to as handles aren't trying to apply for these handles as names. So something like Slutmuffin24, they don't want that showing up as a name.
Right.
So in your case, I don't know. And I don't think they could absolutely tell you either. I do know that people who have names on Second Life with only a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand followers are getting their names approved as those names on Google+. So, I don't know where your example falls in the continuum.
Right. And like I said, I have a domain name, so obviously it seems like it'd be pretty simple for me in my example. But I guess all I was trying to do is give you more ammo to go in your direction.
Well, I mean, I think it's basically the biggest way that this falls short of what I think a lot of the name advocates were looking at is that it doesn't just come out and say, go ahead and use whatever you want to use. Google claims that they're still seeing that people in general react better to names, even if they are not a person's real name, but they look something like a name. They're saying that people react better to that than reacting to handles. There was some back and forth argument about that, and I'm honestly not sure where I feel on that subject.
All right, so we've made progress, and you're happier than you were 2 weeks ago.
I am.
But they're not quite done yet.
Thank you,
Because
Zach.
you'll never be totally happy, Alan.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is. All right.
I do want to close up with this one final point, though.
Mm-hmm.
And this relates to
darn.
what we talked about earlier. And that's that Google, in admitting this, they're basically saying, they made a mistake on how they were dealing with names. And I think that's important for them to say.
They're
looked at the
tired
data.
of hearing the moaning is what they're tired of.
No,
Look how
Oleg.
nimble they are.
Look how nimble they are. It took them
They
7
did not
months
say
to do
anything about
this.
making any mistakes.
Can I finish
They're
my
just
point
simply
here,
tired of
guys?
hearing the same BS.
Guys,
Go
can I
ahead.
finish making
Finish
my
it
point
up.
here?
Wait, Oleg, be careful. There's 13-year-olds watching. Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you. They're admitting they made a mistake. They're admitting that the data didn't bear them out, and they're changing their tactic. And they're changing it from reacting based on totally arbitrary things, a name, and moving and increasing their efforts into anti-trolls. Young Tan made it very clear that the thing that he wants to tackle next are the people who are trolling. So I think that's where we're going to be seeing the next major effort from Google+. Going after people whose behavior is bad.
I broke a pen listening to Alan.
Oleg broke a pen. Oh, my gosh. Okay. All right.
It's not that stressful, Oleg, really.
This topic is.
All right. So Oleg and I are very happy that you've gotten your right to have your pseudonym. As all of our viewers are probably. Okay. Jeff is on his second beer in honor of
Exactly.
the,
But I had to.
what
if we're
brand
talking-
are you drinking now? Are you
I
out
gotta
classing
get- I gotta
Anthony
get
now?
loaded.
What do you got going there, Jeff?
What?
What brand are you drinking?
This is Stella.
So you guys bring out the fancy stuff for the show.
Yeah, well, I figure a 13-year-old would know about it.
Isn't
Poor-
there an
poor
official
Anthony's
Google
stuck
Plus
with
beer?
a warm beast in a can.
This is Paul McCartney's daughter's company. Let's just move on.
Isn't there an official Google Plus beer? I remember some discussion of this.
I should hope not.
There's a business opportunity for you.
I'm pretty sure there is.
All right. Not to move on, but let's move on. Google Plus badge improvements. Alan, I don't know anything about this.
This is so viciously exciting that I think Oleg should handle this because I don't know. I don't think I could contain
Did
it.
he add this or did you? Who did this?
Oleg added this.
Okay, Oleg, would you tell us the exciting news about Google Plus badge
Yeah,
improvements?
it's very short, very concise. Google initially had the badges they put out so people could easily link to their Google Plus presence on their websites. Now they've added some enhancements so you can adjust the size of the badge, you can adjust some of the colors, and basically just make it look a little bit more congruent to your website. We're done with this topic. It's as simple as that.
We don't need no stinking badges.
Actually, you do.
No, it's very important that you have a badge on your
I'm
website.
teasing. I'm just going with the,
But basically, that's it. I mean, there's nothing more to say.
I don't know, Oleg. I'm not convinced this is only Jeff's second beer. What do you think?
if you have a website, I would say definitely use their badge, put it on your blog, put it on your site, put it everywhere you can put it.
And it shows up on the page. It'll say, in fact, more prominently than how many people have you in circles, it says how many people have +1'd you on your web page, right? If you go to a page, I think at the top it's very prominent. Oleg's going to prove me right or wrong.
Yeah, the dashboard actually has the number of people that have liked you. So.
Well, the most important reason to have a badge is so that it links up your Google Plus page, your website, and your search result, and it enables the what are they calling it? The direct connect from a Google search. This is the Facebook this is the replacement for vanity names in Facebook.
Let me ask you
this
something.
This is why Google's pushing it. It's crucial, absolutely crucial for search results.
Okay, let me ask you on search results. Whoever wants to chime in, because I'm not sure about this. If you do a search for a topic, let's say you did a post on an Egyptian mummy that was just recently uncovered in Egypt, some obscure thing like that, and someone did a search for that Egyptian name, and you had a recent Google Plus post about it, that would show up in Google definitely
search.
If someone who is in your circles. Would that show up to someone in the general public, or only someone who circled you or you had some kind of connection with? In other words, is this stuff being exposed on Google generally, or only to people you're connected with?
I believe it's. I think any on Google, when you're in Google, and everything is searchable. So all Google Plus is searchable, and obviously everything else. So yeah, I would say that it shows up, and to the person that is not in Google Plus, and they were searching through the Google search engine, it would show up.
I'm pretty sure that it does not. I'm pretty sure. Well, and I'll give you reasons. When you do a search on the web, and something pops up from your social, from Google Plus, it says, how many results and from Google Plus, and then it says how many additional results are, and in that spot it says which people, and if it's more than a certain amount, it says which people, and then plus whatever amount were involved in this. And I'm pretty sure every time that I've seen it, I don't pay much attention to the people that are showing up, but I'm pretty sure every time that I've seen that list, it's never included people that are not in my circles, or at least people that are not following me.
Okay, I just did a test here. I typed in Google Plus Week in an incognito window in Chrome, so I wasn't logged in at all. And I see a Plus post. I see several YouTube hits first, 3 of those, and then I see Mike Elgin's post when he was on, and then I see news for Google Plus Week, but it's not accurate. It's just the character string, and then I see, I see a couple in there, but not as prominently.
Now, I mean, that's not to attack you, Dan, at all, but that's kind of not a good example, because obviously Google Plus Week, Google Plus results should be what is coming to the top, because it's about Google Plus.
Okay, well, let's
just search for Dan McDermott. Just search for your name.
Right, that would be a much better search.
But be careful, you might search for McDermott and you got Peter coming up all over the place.
Anyway, we can test this later. I was just curious how that worked.
I would guess that it would come up because it's within their network, and they would want it to come up.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we have done that. I guess. Okay. This is kind of interesting. The
Before we move on, though, one more thing.
Yeah.
Since it was very short, I guess. One more thing that they do is there's different kinds of badges. One of the badges, like I have right now, I can't show you easily, but basically, I guess I can show you. I can show you my camera like this. You can see right there, it's the reverse, but see, it allows you to add people right to your circles right from your webpage. So you basically have a badge that says we're on Google Plus, and it allows you to go ahead and just simply click to add. It says Google right now. It happens to be, it shows you the circle you're in, and then you can click on it and select whatever circles you want to add somebody to. So there's a couple of different badges. I just want to make sure it's not just the badge that shows the count. It's also the badge that allows somebody to add you to their circles right from your web page. So, which is also very useful.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's neat. You do restaurant systems, right?
Yeah, or ordering for restaurants, huh?
I like to have.
Cool.
You know, I can have a pizza with my beer.
You can,
We don't do because of the mileage. We don't
I'm
do it.
totally-
Can you just whip one up and have it delivered?
absolutely do not believe that's only your second beer, Jeff. I'm just saying.
teasing. I'm just teasing.
That's cool though. What kind
We only
of
deliver in Kirkland, so if you want to migrate to Kirkland, we'll deliver it for you.
Costco's from there, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, they got some good pizza too. Is that a Costco pizza? You with the home team there, Jeff?
No. I don't do the Costco pizza.
Man, okay. Now we're all hungry, and we can't have any of your pizza because this is not a hurl. This is
Yeah.
a net
Get
hangout.
to Seattle, I'll get you guys fed.
That's it.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's do the eBay. Okay. The CEO of eBay. This is interesting. There was I forget which convention. There were several. There was Munich and there was the other one. But the CEO of eBay wants to integrate onto Google Plus. Has anyone seen exactly what they're doing with Facebook? Because I don't hardly use it much. I mean, does anybody know, Peter or anybody? Have any of you guys seen what what they're talking about with the eBay integration on Facebook? Because I have no idea.
I haven't seen it, but it doesn't surprise me that they're trying to do more of the frictionless type sharing there. That's certainly something that that everyone's interested in.
Yeah.
What do you
The
guys
synergy.
think of? How would they integrate eBay into Google Plus? I'm trying to figure this out.
Well, I mean, I don't think it would be too terribly difficult, especially since Google already has its checkout stuff, which presumably somebody's trying to integrate into Google Plus. Google already has Frugal. Is that still around? It's got shopping. It's
Products.
got,
Yeah.
you know, Google already has all of those e-commerce type hooks. So presumably eBay could hook into any of those things. Whether they could do so successfully, I don't know, but that's
Well, they did a great job with Skype integration, so.
very, very true. I think
Alright.
the problem is eBay in a lot of ways has kind of lost their focus. They don't really know what they're going. They don't really know what angle they're trying to take. And I think they're just kind of reaching around and trying to latch on to everything and everybody that's trendy.
Well, why not?
I'm not faulting them for that. That's
yeah,
for sure.
exactly. Yeah, no, it's another vertical market. What try to penetrate it. It has 90 million users. Makes sense.
By the way, speaking of APIs, integrating with other things, when I talked to Luis yesterday, hopefully the guy doesn't get in trouble. He's in Australia now, so they can't reach him. Basically, he said that the reason they're not doing the right APIs or going very slowly regarding the right APIs is just to make sure the thing doesn't turn into a chaotic environment where everybody's posting to all the networks at the same time and the quality of the content winds up being diluted because it's being spread all over the place. It doesn't really, in other words, what they're trying to do is foster good content on Google Plus as the main idea behind what they're doing.
No, they're locking down the stream.
Well, exactly. So basically, they're not locking it down. They're
Right.
just not releasing the right capability. So you don't have all this junk, not junk necessarily, but all the content coming from Twitter and from all these other places.
I believe that's what I called it last week when I said so.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing, which is totally legit in terms of that. So that's why they're not saying they're not going to ever allow it. They're just saying they're taking their sweet time in allowing right kind of capabilities. And right now, I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with read capabilities. So
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be writing something for read capabilities. So we'll see.
I would still love to embed a Hangout on my web page.
Yeah, what somebody mentioned something in one of the Hangouts I was in that they're able to pull in the URL somehow from the Hangout into their web page so they can advertise the web page as the only thing. So anyway, we'll have to do some experiments then with that and see if we can do the same thing. Obviously, somebody else has done.
I'm convinced that Google Plus is going to really grow as we've seen, and all this stuff. It's going to be less of an issue because everyone's going to be on it. I just think Google is straight up, making it pretty difficult not to be on it. And once people discover it, it's like, wow, this is really cool and it's free and it's awesome. So I think all the complaints will dissipate, and I think they've just gone cautiously as they've grown, as they've introduced stuff because it's still in beta, right? And but I think in the end, it's going to be everyone's going to have it and use it. But this brings up our next issue.
So they're nimbly cautious? Is that what we're saying here?
No, they're rock solid cautious.
They're cautiously nimble, I guess.
Also, in terms of what we talked about earlier, when we talked about, I think Jeff mentioned, difference between posts and Hangouts, there's a really fine line, Jeff, now, because you can now do videos directly as a post.
Correct.
So, that whole thing with separation of the two is not so separate anymore.
Well, you can do
that's a
videos
whole
as a post.
thing.
You can start a Hangout from a post.
From a post, yeah.
There's
No,
a
that's not
lot.
about that.
There's a lot of crossover there. I know that's not what you were saying. I was agreeing with you, Oleg. Relax. Relax,
Which,
Oleg.
by
I
the
was
way,
agreeing.
is a very useful feature. I had a conversation with a client today, and they wanted something, and basically I just recorded a quick video as a post for them for reply. It's a beautiful feature. It's just an excellent feature that they've added.
Early on in Google Plus, Oleg, Michael Dell was on there. I don't know if he uses it all now or frequently or whatever, but he's not in the news about it. But he was on doing Hangouts, and we're talking Michael Dell is in Dell Computer, and he was curious about using Hangouts as a tech support tool.
Absolutely.
And we had a little conversation about this, and just like what you're doing with this specific private post to a client. Do you think? I mean, I could see this being very useful.
Unbelievably useful.
Yeah.
Unbelievably useful. Yes.
Alan
Or,
hates
you
the
know,
idea,
I mean,
right?
A lot of people just don't realize just how useful this feature is.
Yeah,
And I
if you
think
had a
it's
sales, if you had a Salesforce, what a wonderful way to coordinate your team.
Basically, what we're talking about here is this: for people to hang out, you need to have people. I mean, people are saying this is so much better than Skype. It is so much better than Skype, but it's still a situation where both people need to be present. Where this thing excels is you're using the benefit of video without the other person being present, and that's why it's a hugely useful tool for a lot of different things. And at the same time, a definite departure from the Hangout experience because the other person does not have to be there at that time to make it happen, as opposed to Hangouts, you have to be there to make it happen. So I think it's a big distinction.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the video, the recording aspect of a post.
Yeah,
Okay,
the thing
versus
that Alan
the
last time
Hangout.
said
I
wasn't
got you.
anything that important.
I did not say no. Oleg, please don't misquote me. I did not say it was nothing important.
You said it was not as important as the other topic we discussed, which was, I can't remember what it was.
Oleg would never.
No, I think it's as there are specific applications where a small recording such as a tech support or a how-to is a good thing, right? But as a general posting of information, it's faster to read it than to watch a video. So, there's an appropriate place for a video, and then
Right. No question, Jeff. I'm not saying it's a replacement. I'm just saying it's a very important feature. It's a very easy to use feature, and especially in business, for businesses, I think it's a very useful feature.
and for pedophiles too.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not talking about
Now, isn't this just like, more or less you're uploading a YouTube video basically, but it's only on Google Plus?
Except you're doing it very much simpler than doing it.
Right.
But yeah, it's a similar type experience, right?
Yeah, it's a one-click record basically.
Right.
And then it's,
Well, 2 clicks.
That's it.
2 clicks, yeah.
It is,
Well,
but also you can't monetize it, right? So if you're doing it publicly, it's not useful if you're one of these YouTube people who tries to, who has ads on their videos because I don't think there are any view counts. There's no metrics available. There's no
there's a
monetization
+1.
ability.
There's +1.
That's not the same as when you look at a video and you decide whether to read it. I guess you could look at it as
But
comments, but
here's the
really it's
thing.
not for that purpose. It's
Right.
yeah.
Well, you can't say it's not for that purpose. What it boils down to is there are a lot of purposes. In the same way, there are a lot of purposes that people use pictures for. There's a lot of purposes that people use the links for, that use the text for. Google Plus is an incredibly flexible tool. Oleg has found an excellent portion of that tool that works great for him, and I agree, and more power to him. But
And-
that's what Google Plus really boils down to. an incredibly flexible tool that people are molding into what they need.
Right.
That's the beauty of it.
And,
one thing I wish-
and just think if the 13 to 16-year-old, you know, are going to possibly jump all over the little video clip thing, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they will. One thing I wish they would, because it's more of a mainstream feature, I think. One thing I wish they would add in addition to video recording of this is the ability to record either sounds or samples, sound samples. I think that would be also very useful to be able to add, or just music pieces. You could just, you know, do things like SoundCloud things easily embeddable, and you know, just. It'll be
I said that I wanted. I said that I wanted to avoid the 10-year-olds.
Well,
You know, they might add, you know, buy another company for, you know, like online video editing, and then have the ability to edit it and add things, overlays.
Well,
to
they
it,
already
things
have
like
that.
Yeah.
YouTube has video editing. In fact,
it
this
does.
week they just added some more editing features to it.
right.
I bet you they roll that out into the next version of
Probably.
the recording.
Yeah, they killed.
No,
The problem is that right now the video inside Google Plus is actually attached to Picasa, not to YouTube.
Correct.
So there's kind of this dichotomy between the two, and there's no indication when or if they're going to actually join the two up.
now Google always keeps on saying how they want Google Plus to be Google. You know, they don't want it. You know, they want Google Plus to be what you're doing on Google, just in general.
Right.
So, is this just an extremely small step that in, like, I don't know, let's say something absurd like 10 years, that you know, as they make more and more steps, YouTube will cease to exist, and, you know, all this video stuff will be on Google Plus? Or is this just strictly a Google Plus social,
you know,
whatever thing?
I think YouTube is a very profitable for the company. So, you know, there is a revenue stream there. So,
Well, right, and I'm not suggesting that they would kill off the YouTube idea,
all right.
just that they would kill off the YouTube brand as they slowly merge it
just
into.
I
integrate
think
it.
the answer to that
just
is much more
integrate it.
complex. Go ahead, Oleg.
No, I'm just saying they're just simply integrating the two together. It doesn't have to be killed off.
Right.
It's like the deal with the Picnic. I mean, officially Picnic gets killed, but most of the features of Picnic are available through Creative Kit and in Google Plus. So, you know, it doesn't really matter whether they kill the brand or not. I don't think they'll kill YouTube as a brand.
Right, and that's basically what I mean in my question.
And
I think
I'm not convinced
I think
YouTube
what we're
makes
going
any
to
money.
see-
Are they profitable? I mean, didn't they? Aren't they still losing money and they don't break out?
YouTube is making money now.
YouTube makes money.
profit.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the answer is much more complex, especially when you look at how things like Google TV are going to be integrated, especially when you look at how they're going to need to simplify user interfaces, especially when you start looking at, you know, Dan's vision of Hangouts through your TV. I think all of that is going to start coming together. We are going to start seeing personal channels, and we are going to start seeing how circles are going to become channels, and some channels are going to be from a live stream that come from YouTube, and I think it's going to become much more much more complicated and much simpler at the same time.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, TVs do that now pretty much, you know. I mean, they have the smart TVs that have the integrated to YouTube and, you know, Netflix.
But you don't have the
and
social
Hulu.
part.
You don't have the social part,
But
and the way you access them all right now is through a keyboard. I think increasingly what you're going to start seeing is accessing them through an actual channel.
Yeah, but typically I think what happens is, I could be wrong, but, you know, when you sign on with your smart TV, it has your logon capability, and then it brings up your channels, your preferences, and then you pick from there.
Right, but Jeff, again, it doesn't have any social stuff in it right now.
No, it doesn't. No,
And
not
so
as-
we're talking about
Right.
here having the whole Google Plus experience integrated within the same environment, which becomes a totally different deal, because now you're dealing with circles, like Alan said, and you have a circle dealing with, I don't know, Godfather fans.
Yeah, but
And
if you
so-
watch it now, correct me if I'm wrong. If you watch a video that has been posted on Google Plus, that shows up on the history of what you see in YouTube.
Probably.
I've never checked that, I don't know.
think
I
it
don't
is.
know, but it wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me if it did, because it's all the same Google login.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what's going to be really interesting is if YouTube ever fully adopts the concept of circles, so that you'll be able to create videos, share them on YouTube, and only share them with your circles.
Right.
That's something that's missing right now, and I think it's going to be a very interesting feature, because then you're going to start creating, your child's YouTube channel, and you don't have to worry that people outside your family aren't going to see it.
Right.
But it also means that grandma can tune into channel 56, and 24/7 is going to be able to see pictures of her grandchild. And maybe that's going to be a live stream from your Hangout, and maybe it's going to be a recording of what happened last night. But grandma isn't going to know and isn't going to need to care. She just needs to tune to channel 56 like she always did.
I think part of the reason they're not moving in that direction just yet, or maybe they're moving, just haven't come up with it, is because they want more people on Google+. They want more people to know what circles are and how to use them before they actually crank it up.
Yes.
I think that's
I think they are. I think they are slowly moving in that direction. I think.
But at
Google
the same
Plus is part
time,
of
I
it.
could be wrong, because they did incorporate circles into Gmail, and Gmail is certainly not the biggest email client out there.
Yeah.
So
They got it. I was actually in a Hangout today. This guy was doing it from his Galaxy Nexus, and it was actually pretty good. I was surprised.
Doing what?
He was in a Google Hangout using his phone.
Yeah, I tried it with Samsung, my Samsung S2. Yeah, it is pretty nice. The only
I
biggest
think-
problem with Hangouts is you cannot start a public Hangout from your phone right now. You just can't do it.
But he
I think the camera, that's called a webcam, but I mean the camera on my phone. I think the webcam on my phone is better than the webcam on my laptop.
Yeah, but that's a personal problem.
Do you
Yeah, you
really
got
want
your
us to
new
comment
laptop.
on
Right.
your camera tonight again?
All
No,
right.
I'm just making it a point of how crappy one is, and
there is that.
yeah.
There is that Android app that allows you to use your camera as a IP camera on a Wi-Fi network.
Well,
I
I'm
can't
not
believe
holding
we
my
all know
camera up
Anthony so
for the
well.
entire show.
We know Anthony so well, and we really have no idea what he looks like because his lighting is so atrocious.
Well, he's in the space shuttle.
He's a nice guy,
Well, I'm actually getting a new light tomorrow, so maybe
You've said this
next
before.
Friday we'll
You're,
have.
you're a tease.
What's that say?
You keep threatening to get a new light. What do we got here? Oleg, what do you
You have
got?
a new compliment.
I got a new compliment. Must be from Alan.
You're on Yelp?
I guess I got something on Yelp. I never got these before. But anyway, that's the phone. That's the Samsung Galaxy that you can use to do the Hangout from here.
Yeah.
What do you have that would get a compliment on Yelp, Oleg?
I have no idea, but I have my takeout online stuff, my restaurant stuff. So somebody complimented, I don't know, one of my reviews or something. I don't know.
Cool. Okay.
It was probably some female.
Is that what you do? Someone signs up for your services, and then you just give them all a bunch of positive reviews?
No, but I gotta tell you one thing I'm doing is that with all the new restaurants that get on from now on, I'm gonna pretty much insist that they get a Google Plus page and start putting their stuff on Google Plus and things like that, because I think it's gonna be nothing but useful for them. I mean, any restaurant would be dumb not to do something like that.
Oh yeah.
It's
just
so easy to get it set
It's
up.
another time thing, but it's all about ROI, return on investment. I mean, how much time you going to spend maintaining the page, putting your specials up, and but yeah, they if they get people to circle them, I mean, I think it would be useful. I know there's a local restaurant here that every day they put up, like many restaurants, they put up their special of the day.
Yeah, I haven't done anything basically on Takeout Online yet, except for setting up a page, and I have 550 people already that circle me. And so, maybe it's because of the name. I don't know. But, restaurants should do this. No question, the restaurants should do that.
Cool. Okay, there's a little backlash about Google's privacy policy. I saw a post, really good post from Mike Elgin about this. And basically, I'm trying to summarize through several different things here. He wrote, brace yourself for some minor league hysterics over the new Google policy. You'll be told that Google is Big Brother, that the policy ignores user choice and preference, and that you're being coerced into a dystopian online existence. But in reality, they're consolidating and unifying far-flung services to create a single personalized experience across Google properties that will keep the company relevant and enable it to move to the next phase in the evolution of the internet. And the company is doing so in a transparent manner that I wish more companies would embrace. This is, of course, referring to the decision to take 60 different terms of service policies and consolidate them into a single policy covering all Google properties, with a few exceptions, including enterprise, contract customers, and some other things. But generally, this is the deal, and it makes sense in my mind. So, of course, people freak out. Let's look at the several Congress people asked, wrote Larry Page with a public letter, and the CEO of Google, and they asked him a series of questions. Please describe all information that Google collects from consumers now. How will this information change after the new policy has been implemented? How is the user's information collected? Please clarify how Google will use the information it collects. Explain Google's process for sharing data across products, features, and services. Explain the practices regarding the archiving of user information. Then they reference a Washington Post article saying that consumers won't be able to opt out of the changes. And then does Google plan to offer distinct privacy protections for children and teens? Explain exactly how a user of an Android phone will be affected by the new policy, and on and on. U.S. Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn, her quote in a press release: after all the controversies, Google has become entangled. The question people keep asking is, how can we ever begin to trust Google? I've always said private industry needs to take the lead in providing consumer choice and transparency before big government rushes in to regulate. But Google's move to eradicate consumer choice altogether across their various platforms raises additional questions about how the company's monopoly power might hurt competition, and how their action might unilaterally and unnecessarily invite even broader government regulations on everyone else. And then Google responds. That is from the 26th, and then on the 26th, Google responds. Here's the real story. You have choice and control. You don't need to log in to use many of our services, including search, maps, and YouTube. If you were logged in, you can still edit or turn off your search history, switch Gmail chat to off the record, control the way Google tailors ads to your interests, blah, blah, blah. We're not collecting any more data about you. Our new policy simply makes it clear that we use data to refine and improve your experience. We're making things simpler, and we're trying to be upfront about it. You can use as much or as little of Google as you want. For example, you can have a Google account and choose to use Gmail but not Google+, or you keep your data separate with different accounts. As I do, I have a YouTube account.
Last point.
Several. Okay.
Dan, read that last point again, because it's important.
You can use as much or as little of Google as you wish. For example, you can have a Google account and choose to use Gmail but not use Google+. Or you could keep your data separate with different accounts. For example, one for YouTube and another for Gmail, which is what I do, and why I have to have, I use Internet Explorer to log into Facebook and YouTube when I upload this show, because it's a different account than the account I have for Google+.
Right. That's an incredibly important point. In the past, Google has kind of said, well, one person, one account. Now they're increasingly coming out and making it clear that if people want to be able to divide their personalities, they are perfectly free to use different accounts.
Yeah.
And even more than that, they're going to help you do so. In the past, there have been ways to have multiple logins at the same time. The latest version of Chrome, or the version of Chrome that's about to come out, the one that's currently in beta, allows you to have each tab in a separate Google account. Google is supporting this. They're increasing privacy by doing this. They're putting the power completely in your hands. This is a really
God,
good
Alan,
move
does
for
that
Google.
mean that you're going to have to log in for each tab? I won't be able to just, if I'm in Gmail, I won't be able to open up Docs and open up Google+. I'll have to log in every time?
It's not that you won't be able to. It's that it gives you the choice of how you want to manage it.
And again,
for example, I have a Google account for work, and I have a Google account for home. I have each one of those in a different tab. If I want to, I can share data between the two by sending it back and forth. But if I've got a document for work, it stays in my work. If I've got a document for home, it stays at home. The two personalities of me are completely separate.
Right.
What's even more important is, although they've consolidated almost all their privacy policies, it's important to note that they're saying almost. One of the privacy policies that's separate is Chrome's privacy policy. Chrome is not folded under the rest of the we're going to share all your data. So they're explicitly saying, we're going to let you manage your account separately. We're going to let you manage who sees what. And we're going to give you a tool that lets you do it easily. And that tool is Chrome.
Right. And the reason why they're doing it is just what Dan said. You know, to get around any kind of monopoly issues, there's always choice. There's always these other, you know, options for you. But realistically, people don't do what Alan does, right? So they're not.
No. That's going too far.
But no, I'm saying,
you know, Alan's argument about work and home is a perfect argument for having multiple accounts. Historically,
no,
people.
I'm just saying the majority of people do not do that. But it gives Google the ability to say we don't fall under a monopoly rule. You can't apply this to us. We're not a monopoly because you have all these other options, even though probably 95% of the people don't use all the options.
I don't like this whole comparison to it being a monopoly. I mean, it's voluntarily. You could use Bing,
Correct.
You can use Lycos or Yahoo or
right.
whatever.
Yeah.
For video,
question,
there's other
Well,
video services. They're just better at it. You know, the other services
that's really
aren't as good.
I mean, that's a bad comparison. A good comparison will be once upon a time you were perfectly free to use a non-Bell telephone if you could find one.
Well,
no, you weren't allowed to use that. I remember
the issue here.
that you had to rent it for
Yahoo News. I have a Yahoo account. I like the way they format the news. I like it. They format it nice on my Android phone, and I use that. You know.
I think that they're number one, right? Aren't they the
Yeah.
number one news destination still? Yahoo. That's one area that they don't
so-
suck in.
Yeah.
And also I'm not sure there's more Gmail than Yahoo. I think at one point they overstepped them, but there's tons of people using Yahoo email. No, but the deal is this. Most of the computer users, it's like the old argument about, another social network, I don't want to have another login and stuff. It's most people prefer to have a single login with a single password, so they don't have to mess with every single application having its own login. So the single login initiative is very prominent, and a lot of people want to be able to have that. However, you have a situation like Alan described, which is totally legitimate and totally valid, is you want to segregate your work life from your home life, as a simple example. And that's where this whole thing with the single user login just doesn't work. And so that's where I think what they're doing is they're saying, if you want to have one, you can, but if you want to have more than one for various purposes. I mean, some people use multiple accounts so they can have more space. So they could have their Picasa stuff be stored in one account and their email in another account. I mean, people use all kinds of different reasons why they wanted to have multiple accounts. And Google saw that there's no way they can stop it. It's impossible to stop, enforce, or anything else. So right now they're doing, again, as Alan pointed out, they're making it easier to take your multiple accounts and manage them as a single group, easily accessible from within Chrome, especially Chrome because obviously they're Chrome. So you can do these things like you can have these multiple identities, but you're able to log into each one of them in a separate tab, and you can still manage your life in a relatively easy way.
Do any of you guys do what I do where that's the only reason I use Internet Explorer now, is because I have a separate account, and so I have to keep it minimized up, and I could have Firefox, in a separate minimized session.
I don't, but that's because I have figured out how to switch accounts from Google, so I can have three different Google accounts logged in at once.
You couldn't do it, so you don't have any choice.
Right.
But really, that's the only reason I use Internet Explorer is because I don't want to have to type my password in again.
Well, and you can make the same deal about, for example, Yahoo. You have Yahoo, configured with password saved in IE, so that's what you pull up to get into your Yahoo stuff. I mean, you have some applications that only run on IE. I mean, there's reasons to use different browsers.
Well, no, and I think what Dan is saying is that he has two Google accounts, and he always accesses one of his Google accounts through Internet Explorer, and he always accesses the other one through Chrome because he doesn't want to bother with having to log in and log out and log into the other one and then log out and log in
Right,
again.
but now,
and
like
back
you
and forth.
said, now that you can't do both at the same time, there's no reason for them to use
Right.
AE anymore.
Right.
So isn't it kind of similar to say Google Plus with your brand page? You switch over that identity, and all of a sudden all your posts are coming from that identity. Isn't that be kind of like
there
the same
are
thing?
similarities, but it's not quite the same because the difference is that you need to log into each account, as opposed to the page being based on who you are. There are similarities, though.
All right, so we've got, I think, do we have any thoughts on this topic? Any final thoughts, Peter, anybody, about this whole notion that on the terms of service change? It seems to me it's transparent, it makes sense, it's simpler.
Reality is nobody is reading these terms of services anyway. Nobody.
Including the Congress people who are criticizing them.
EULAs, any of these.
Well, that was the whole point. The point was to make this stuff clear so that people could read it, pay attention to what they were actually agreeing to when they signed on.
True.
What they were getting is they were getting a backlash of a lot of people that said when they were signing up for these services, they were seeing these pages upon pages upon pages of legalese. And Google said, now that we have 60 products that people are using globally, this is out of control. People don't even understand what the privacy settings are here. So to give us a leg up on Facebook and other things, why don't we make this in simple, plain English? So they went to the lawyers and said, let's bring it all together. They all say the same thing. We're already sharing the data. That's what they all say. Let's package it very neatly and be transparent to the people using our services so they understand what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I
what
understand,
happened
Peter.
is people, for the first time, actually read the privacy statement. And that's why we saw the backlash that we did over the last week.
Yeah, they said there was no change. And who is stupid enough to think, Peter, who is stupid enough to think that you're going to log in with username and password into a service and then that there's not going to be any track record of what you're doing? I mean, doesn't anyone notice that when you go and look at
Dan, here's what it is. People thought, people have somewhere in their mind that Gmail is different than Google Docs. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm logging into Google, people were thinking, I'm logging into Gmail, and then I'm logging into Google Calendar, and then I'm logging into Google Docs. Not everyone made that leap to realize that you're logging into the same account.
Now, Alan, there is one thing about the privacy policy, and I haven't read them to understand this, but I do know this is not effective until Wednesday. It's going to be March 1st when this goes effective.
That's
Two
a
things
month.
you're going to see. If you have a Gmail account, you're going to be getting a couple emails from Google explaining what's going on. When you go to google.com over the next few days, right there on google.com on the homepage, you're going to see an explanation of what's happening, more so than what you're seeing now. That's what I understand from some news articles I've been reading. But the difference is, yes, there actually are a couple services that now on Wednesday are going to start sharing data that weren't sharing data before. What those services are, I'm not entirely sure. But Alan, you're right to assume, since you've been using any Google product, that they've always been sharing this information with each other.
Right.
What some people don't realize, though, is certain products like YouTube are owned by Google. You would be surprised how many people would be surprised if you told them that.
Well,
yeah, once you're trying to unify the whole interface, unify all their products together, it makes sense for them to have one service agreement, and that's where they're headed towards.
But I think what it is there are people out there, and I'm agreeing with Peter. There are people out there who just never made the connection to realize that Gmail and Google Docs or Gmail and YouTube are the same account. They never made that connection.
I don't think they really thought about it.
Sorry, Oleg, go ahead.
Most people don't. Most people that do this, they just don't think about it. I disagree that people will start reading the terms of service now. Vast majority of them will be like before. You click accept, you click the checkbox, you let go. That's how vast majority of people do it.
But Oleg, what they were trying to do here, this wasn't an attempt where we live in this litigious society where people want to protect themselves, they want to protect their kids, people want to be responsible adults. People in the workplace are worried about social media policies, what they're sharing to who, and how that information is being dealt with. This allows them to have the opportunity to feel comfortable about sharing other information.
Yeah, but
either that or it's an attempt to streamline the process.
You wouldn't have done it before.
Peter, realistically speaking, I was just going to say, realistically speaking, we know that the concept of having privacy online is a myth, okay? We know that hackers can do a lot of damage no matter what the Google's privacy is. We know all kinds of organizations have been hacked.
Well, you're talking about a general sense of security, and anybody can break into my house. And
That's what I'm saying.
Don't bring that into it.
The
Don't
reason
bring
why
that into it.
Hey, let me say one thing. I believe the reason why they're doing it is they're just streamlining their processes. They are just streamlining. They're making
and the only
it
reason
easier.
people are talking about it is because they announced it, not because people read it.
Right. They're making it easier on themselves because they're going to all these products are integrating together. They have one service agreement. It's a lot easier to track. It's a lot easier to deal with than having all these different things. They're streamlining their process. All this stuff is coming into a homogeneous environment or homogeneous interface. It's all Google. It's going to just come together.
Well, and that's what's scaring people, though, Jeff, is people didn't realize this was all Google. I mean, you would be surprised how naive people are on some of the services they've been using here. The services do have unique brands, and you have to remember a lot of the services here were not Google's to begin with.
Right.
Blogger was independent. YouTube was independent. These
Docs.
services have been acquired by Google,
Right.
and unbeknownst to a lot of people in the public at large.
Yeah, people don't know that Nabisco makes Cheerios and all these other products on the shelf. You're all buying it from General Mills, but it's but they had to streamline their process because they need to do it. Just need to do it. That's my belief.
Yeah.
It's funny. I remember I went to Kmart. I had to go to Kmart to buy something. And
did you go to J.C. Penney's afterwards, Dan?
No, but I've got a post. I'll tell you what, Peter. I went to J.C. Penney, and I'll talk about this in a second. Totally non-tech topic, but I went to Kmart, and I was in line, and they said they've got this new service that they'll email you your receipt. And, of course, it's all, we want to get your email address to spam you. And I was like, there's no way in hell that I'm going to give you my email address so I can be in your hackable data cloud, But it's funny how I was, it's right, Oleg's right. I was reluctant to give Kmart my email address, but I have no problem. I haven't read the new terms of service. I don't know if I've ever read thoroughly a terms of service agreement. Isn't that weird that we're the same way? Like, didn't it bug you, Oleg, when you'd go to Radio Shack and they'd want your phone number? Like, why, When they had the ghetto thing with the roller. And Kmart, I was like, I'm not giving you my, just bring me up. Here's my $8. I had this thing, and nobody else is up in or whatever. But then we'll just gloss over. We'll sit there and do all kinds of stuff online and never give it a glance. And then we all freak out when we're all, I guess, I'm a public guy, so I don't care, it wouldn't bug me at all. But for people who have like conversations with their boyfriend or girlfriend or what have you, and then all of a sudden if that data got compromised, that's a legitimate fear. But
it's
I
like
think
a Seinfeld episode where why does Radio Shack ask for your address when you buy batteries, right? It's kind of like because they want it,
Yeah, they'll mail, so they can mail you stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, this will all work itself out. And then I guess Congress will freak out again. And I don't know why they keep picking on Google, unless it's
because they're big. They're at the top.
Or because they supported Obama and these are Republicans doing this. I don't know.
Nah, come on. Dan, come on.
No, I'm serious. That's a legitimate point, isn't it?
Next topic, please.
Why does O'Reilly beat up on NBCGE?
PMSNBC, you mean?
Yeah. No, not them. But he would he'd make it all about what was it, Jeffrey Immelt, NBC? Come on, that's normal. If there's he beats up on the finance guy. What's his name?
The guy who didn't pay taxes.
No, the guy, not that guy. The international guy who.
And G guy is the guy who was selling some stuff to Iran.
Soros.
Yeah.
George Soros. And just like MSNBC, if there's a right-wing businessman, they're going to pick on them. That's all part of the takedown, That's politics, First Amendment. I'm not picking on one particular side. I like O'Reilly. And O'Reilly is actually, I've emailed him before, and he's used it on his show.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'll send you a picture. I'll share it with you. Okay, so, all right, last official topic. It's kind of a letdown, really. Like a boring Glenn Beck episode or something. That was for Oleg's benefit. U.S. Android users can now download Google Music songs to your device, so you're not having to wait for the caching cloud if it's not caching at the moment.
Hey, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this? I mean,
It has nothing to do with the caching of the cloud. It has to do with how much data time you have, data usage you have. And if you're streaming all the time, you're going to eat up your 2 gigabytes on AT&T, God bless them, in no time. So the idea being that you can download your stuff through Wi-Fi, and then you can just play it locally.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
I think it's a great idea. You know, I put my entire library of music on Google Plus. I mean, Google Music. So
Oleg's wife works for AT&T, and he is the last defender of the great American telephone giant. Good for you.
My wife today just got an iPhone, so I'm part of the dark side now.
I'm feeling sorry for her, Jeff. Just give her my condolences on that time.
Any final thoughts, Peter McDermott, on this wonderful Google Plus week that we've just had?
No, it's been a great week for Google in consolidating their privacy statements, explaining to the world how this all works. I'm sorry it was so shocking. I'm sorry you just found out they own YouTube and Blogger. I'm sorry that your Gmail has the same information as your Google Docs. That really just must be a travesty for you, and I'm sorry.
Oh my God, I'm a Republican.
Seeing teens on Google Plus, it's going to be interesting. Over the next few weeks, as Alan has commented, there's a great opportunity for them to learn and to discover new things from this network. But let's hope that's done in a safe manner, that Google is policing things correctly, and hopefully that we'll get some provisions that allow adults to control their content. That's all I have, Dan.
Without the slightest tinge of sarcasm, that was Peter G. McDermott. Let's go to Oleg Moskalensky, who didn't have any vodka tonight.
No, I had Jack Daniels.
You had a little Jack Daniels.
No, I need to actually get going. No, it's they keep coming out with new stuff, and it's great. I still maintain that the privacy thing is nothing in terms of people actually reading these things. It's just because they announced it, people are all in tizzy about looking into it and all that. Reality is that all the users that are signing up will be signing up as they did before. They didn't care before who owns what. They're still not going to care except for very, very few individuals. And Google is doing legal thing as they should be doing. And in terms of other features, they just keep rolling them out, and the stuff seems to work. We don't have any failing whales or anything going on, which is excellent. It's moving in the right direction. Now, if Vic could just give me Hangouts on air so I can record my classes, then I'd be happy.
Yeah, I think that that they should definitely do that. If anyone's watching, I know we have some Googlers who are watching this, and I hope they do that. And Jeff, did you see that funny post? Where was it? Where Vic weighed in on somebody's post, and he said, "Welcome to Google Plus. We don't have capacity issues."
Oh yeah.
He's
we
funny.
Don't have ads.
He's got a nice sense of humor.
We don't have. I tell you what, though, you got to admit that this product has been pretty rock solid.
There are some issues, but yeah, it's pretty darn good.
It has been. It has
What?
been. I mean,
Alan's next. Hang on, give Jeff. Jeff's got to go. His wife's angry at him already.
With the wife, but I just want to say, I think Google is heading in the right direction. They're making all the right moves, and it's going to be a seamless integration, and you'll be surprised at how many people are on this thing. It's just going to grow and grow. I'm not a big fan of having the 13-year-olds on. I wish there would be some kind of a way of restricting how that is happening. And I'm sure it will be worked out because they've done an excellent job of working those things out in the past.
Jeff, come on. You were 13 once. Come on. Let's not.
Yeah, but there's a
but I don't want to be
difference
13 again. That's the thing.
The thing, Oleg,
Why not?
I mean, to take a 13-year-old is like someone like Tristan Gilbert. I think he's 17. He's been on this show many times, right?
Yeah, but that's a difference.
Nice kid. Exactly. It's a big difference between Tristan Gilbert on our tech show here and a 13-year-old. And the kind of things I would feel comfortable saying to Tristan versus a 13-year-old. I treat Tristan as an adult, as an equal member of the show, I was on a tech show last night, which is at, oh, God.
See, this is what happens when you get past 13. You can't remember anything.
Netcast Studio.
Jeff, I got to run. Have a good weekend,
but anyway,
everybody.
all right, Oleg, have a good one. Alan,
Take care.
final. But, yeah, the whole thing is it's a big difference between 13 and 17, in my opinion. Okay, Alan, final thoughts on this Google Plus week.
2 final thoughts. First final thought. This was not a big week in technology on Google Plus. but there were some massive, massive changes socially. And I think that really highlights the fact this is a social network. This is not a technology network. And I think that's a great thing. It's always exciting to see what Google comes out with, and I think this week they came out with some really outstanding stuff. Point number 2, we've said several times there's a big difference between 13-year-olds and 17-year-olds. There isn't. There is a big difference in people who are mature and people who are immature, and that's not directly correlated to age.
Okay, let me disagree with you here. I hear what you're saying when I have to choose between someone like Tristan, who I've used a reference without his permission. I apologize, but he's a great guy, and your typical 13-year-old. But when Google has to set policies, you can't evaluate each person individually for a free service. You have to kind of generalize.
I agree.
So that's what I'm talking about. Clearly, in your transactions, it's different. But when you're setting a policy for a system-wide thing,
Google has been forced to generalize, and I find that disappointing. But that's what they're forced to do. Individuals, however, a lot of individuals on Google Plus are saying they don't want to talk to under 18-year-olds. And they're saying they don't want to talk to under 18-year-olds solely on the basis that they're under 18.
Okay,
and
but
I think
Alan,
that is a shame.
Okay, but here's I agree with you. And I disagree with that. But they have the right to their opinions, right? But here's the thing.
Sure, and I have the right to disagree with their opinions.
But you're and that's why you're on the show. But you're a computer guy. You're a programmer and a talented one. If you had a system with 100 million users, which is probably where Google's at now, active users, 100 million, and you had to make these decisions, you have to admit these are tough calls. What do you do on these things? It's not easy, and I'm sure that they banter about, and that's why sometimes they'll delay things, because if you think, how do we do pseudonyms without, we want to prevent spam, but we want to allow someone like Prisoner through, but we don't have time to evaluate each individual person and give the service away for free because of the labor expense involved. What do we do? It's tricky. And so most of the decisions they've made are pretty good, right? And we love the service, but even though we criticize it for a solid 2 hours every night, but we do it with affection. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying that it's tough. It's not easy to come up with these things if you're having to deal with it in an aggregate number.
Of course it's tough. And that's why I think as much as possible, they've got to leave things as open and as flexible as possible. There are places that they can't. There are places that they have to impose rules. But for the most part, when you start imposing rules, you start running into edge cases. And when you run into those edge cases, you're going to be running into one after another, and those are the ones that are going to cause problems. They have to implement the 13 to 18-year-old limit solely because the law says they have to impose these restrictions. If they didn't, if they had a wide open system, if they didn't have COPA breathing down their necks, then you would see a very different system.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it until next week. All right, what I'm going to do is, first of all, thank everyone who's on the show tonight. And I'm getting ready to open up to all my circles. So if you're watching, look for it. I'm going to bring it open. I'm going to end the official show, and we'll keep the hangout going as long as you guys want to hang out with Peter and Alan. And our grumpy Russian friend is gone. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for watching so much. This edition of Google Plus Week. Have a great weekend.